Hello, I'm Mike Gordon. Welcome to Perfect Playthroughs, where our objective is to accomplish everything the game has to offer. We are now officially at the halfway point for Summer of Sega, and having just completed Landstalker for the Sega Genesis yesterday, we need a transitional game to help us carry us over to our next Sega RPG, Shining in the Darkness. And I gave it some thought, and after careful consideration, I decided I'm going to A, cancel tomorrow's live stream, and B, push this game as the intro video for Shining in the Darkness till tomorrow. So that way I only am uploading one thing per day. See, yeah, I think I was getting on a lot of people's nerves with the weekend rentals and the perfect playthroughs and whatnot, in the intro videos being posted online at the same time, 2 videos a day every day. I don't think that's gonna work. So this is actually the first time since, though I played this game in last year's Summer Sega, it wasn't under the Perfect Playthrough banner. And despite doing my first set of weekend rentals all being 1989 games, this is gonna be my first perfect playthrough of a Sega Genesis launch title since what was it, 2022? Yeah, with the 12 games of Christmas, so I did Revenge of Shinobi and Thunder Force 2. Those are literally the very last two perfect playthroughs I've done of games released in 1989. Man, that was such a long time ago. But this is the only game that I own from that year that I've yet to put under the perfect playthrough banner. So might as well just get this over with now. Fantasyland falls into crisis now. And yes, this is a sequel to the original Space Harrier, which I also did through on, but that was the arcade version. So, Stuna area, Forest Yard, Easeland, Xeropolis, Copper Hill, Valpiram, Grada, Monarch, Felcold, Hope City, Hell Peak, and Hot Palace. Total, plus a couple of bonus rounds that we need to complete if we are to reach the final level of Space Harrier II. That is all that is required of us as far as achieving a perfect playthrough, so it doesn't really matter which order we cover these games in. Alright, let's see. Oh, I'm getting an error message. I just want to make sure everything's up and running. Alright, let's do this. I want to make sure everything's up and running before we actually get started. Alright, looks like everything's in order. So I have no idea what that no idea what that deal was, so let's get started. And no worries about trying to kill everything. And also, I do think Space Harrier II kind of is kind of a pretty positive. As try as Sega might at trying to make their games appear like it's just like playing an arcade game. This isn't exactly the smooth. These games aren't exactly gonna have the smoothest. Alright, kill that sub boss. This is the first boss, not too bad. Forest Yard is the second level. Honestly, so long as I'm not making too many bonehead mistakes, I think I can afford a couple replays. I mean, keep in mind that the Space Harrier games, the primary objective is to survive all the way to the boss rounds, and then beat the bosses. You don't really need to. Do you really need to kill every single enemy? Well, I guess you could do if you are just aiming for a high score. I saw stuff in the background. That's what we were blowing up. Yes, this is a sequel to Space Harrier, the arcade. They have basically similar plots. This time our aim is to save Fantasy Land. I think the previous game was like Dino Land or something. Or, stupid frogs. Alright, let's go. So yeah, there's definitely some choppy as far as... Sorry, my mind's fried. I haven't eaten breakfast. pretty easy, though. Zero Polis. So I'm just really concentrating here. I think we're coming up to a boss soon. No, they're not. But trivia, this game and Super Thunderblade were actually the first two Sega Genesis games ever released in Japan. Both came out in 1988, around, I think, October. Alter Beast would come out shortly after. And clearly, Space Harrier II and Super Thunderblade were the year one releases specifically to show off the capacity of the Sega Genesis of the Mega Drive. Look at the 3D scaling, it's just like the arcade, except it's a little choppy in both games. I do think this game does feel a bit more smooth compared to Super Thunderblade. It also doesn't have such stiff controls too. Here the objective is to just get a high enough kill count so you can rack up a high score. About 50,000 points. Upper Hill. That was the first bonus round. There's one more bonus round that we need to complete. Classic arcade game got a sequel. It was mostly, the sequels were mostly there just to try to improve on what came before it. It wasn't like, oh, this was a huge hit, that's the money-making machine. It's more like, yeah, it was successful, but it was also pretty flawed. And the first game was highly successful, then any sequel to it is just gonna be experimental before they definitely just go to a back to basics route. You know, Super Mario Bros. 2 to Super Mario Bros. 3, Simon's Quest, before doing Dracula's Curse. Even Zelda had that experimentations. Not really talking much about these bosses. It's real. The first boss is pretty simple. Just aim for the head. It's mostly just shoot the target and evade their projectiles. That's really just the strategies. There are a few exceptions to this rule, like the first boss you just have to aim for the heads. Take them all out. Right here, I'm just spinning in a circle because they are firing a ton of projectiles at me. And interestingly enough, this kind of has the same thing as the original Space Harrier of the arcade, in that once you beat it, the game is done. There's no loop over for those. Okay, boss time. Alright, this is one of the few instances of a unique mechanic with the boss. You generally can only kill these bosses by hitting them when they're all fused together. So if you continue spinning around opposite, you'll eventually hit them and they'll die. It's also one of the few enemies that gives you absolutely no indication on whether or not you're actually hitting them. Usually you can hear it. So the plot of Space Harrier, I don't know the full plot of the Space Harrier franchise as a whole. Basically, you're like a Flash Gordon type hero who looking to protect the different planets of the universe from evil. You're like a Flash Gordon type of person in that regard, except I don't see any proof of him ever playing for the New York Jets. Yeah, of the launch titles, a case can be made that this is the best game to come out of that launch window. This boss, just hit and miss. And this is the enemy that appears on the cover. But Space Harrier II, I do know that some rogue carriers, led by the evil Dark Carrier, I think his name is, have decided to invade Fantasyland, and it's up to Space Harrier here to put a stop to it. And this is literally the enemy on the box art. And speaking of which, this is one of the few Genesis titles to have the same box art literally everywhere. Japan, North America, Europe, other PAL territories. imagine that the only thing about this game that would be speedrun worthy would probably be the bosses, because the game is pretty much on an auto scroll. Trying to keep rewinds to a minimum, but I'm not that good at this game. Yeah, I managed to get them all that time. And trying to take all these ball things down as a boss is just so annoying. It's actually one of the few levels not to have a proper boss and just an army of generic enemies. And there are a bunch of clams on the ground, so I'm just gonna shoot a bunch of them. This is noticeably tougher to land any hits on, though. Alright. Both rounds down. Now we're at Belcold. Now these spaceships are firing missiles at us, which will make it very difficult to deal with them. We can't actually kill those things. They're just objects for us to avoid. Getting pretty sloppy here. Alright, this boss is kind of interesting. This is one of the few enemies in the game where you can actually shoot the projectiles. Which is gonna help because they otherwise home in on you. But otherwise, that boss wasn't that difficult at all. None of these levels are that hard, which is kind of funny because I still abuse the rewind feature. Level where we have to deal with these robots. Oh no. It doesn't seem like my shots are doing anything to them either. Now there's a noticeable difficulty spike. Alright, this boss is completely impervious to damage and will kill you just by touching you. The only way you have to wait till he opens his shell and then hit him to kill him. Now we're at Hell Peak. Well, I show off all the different levels that we had. That we had to do. Yeah, we're not quite there yet. Alright, we took out those guys. Oh, shit. Alright, sorry, the screen flickered on me again. This guy, you can only hit him when the face is fully formed like that, and when he breaks it apart, you gotta get out of the way. All you have to do. I'd say there are about 3 or 4 bosses in the entire game that have very specialized strategies for dealing with them. That also includes the final boss, by the way, who otherwise takes quite a beat if he requires a ton of hits to take down. Alright, and... this is where this game gets difficult. Alright, this is a repeat of an earlier boss. He takes quite a lot of damage too. So that's it for the 12 main levels. Now we're at Stage 13, which is Tremolar. A boss gauntlet, so to speak. Same strategy as all last time, kill each of the 3 heads. And this one is, I just aim for the head at all times, but if you take out all the projectiles, Screen flickered on me again. TV just doesn't want to stay on. Stop it! Stop flickering! Alright, oh, you have to take out all of their projectiles first, and then you can... Just in time. And now it's Brizzer. Brizzer. Can you tell when you're hitting the target? Well, you can hear it. And also it changes colors. Neodom. And we have to deal with these armored guys firing a never-ending barrage of missiles. I hate the bosses where you just have to fight a bunch of enemies at the same time. Manticora? Oh, it's like the cat thing with wings. Oh, that boss when I didn't last time, that was weird. Now the wizards. Give you absolutely no indication as to whether or not you're actually hitting them. I have noticed that one of these things, I just noticed that only one of the wizards ever actually hits you, meaning the other two are just illusions. And now Medusas. Same strategy as last time. Something else worth noting is I think these bosses take less hits than compared to last time. Which makes sense since they're just sub-bosses this time. Now we have underflowed with the number of lives. Tomos, next boss. And of course it's those balls. So I took him out quickly, and I think we have one more boss. Dragon, yes. Oh wait, we have, I think this was the stage 10 boss. So as last time, you just have to shoot the projectiles, and then unload them. And then unleash them. Yeah, most of these bosses are pretty easy. Spin. Alright, okay, now we're at the stage 11 boss. Just realized I was supposed to hit the top of his face, not the head itself. And where the third eye is at. Now it's Cthulhu, the final boss that we get to rematch. And there's a retread of last time. He's just about dead. And now we've got the final boss, Dark Harrier himself. Now I got him stun locked. So long as good, I got him stun locked. Eventually he's gonna die. And he just takes a lot of hits. Good thing for the stun lock. So I'll make just want to make sure I break out my stun lock. And if I do, I just make adjustments between left and right. He just keeps taking hits. Oh! 40? Man, that was long. Yeah, that still wasn't a great run by any stretch, but I will at least give myself the benefit of the doubt. The war is over. However, Harrier feels an unbearable emptiness, rather than the usual satisfaction that results from the successful accomplishment of a mission. He thinks to himself, I'm not the only one who has the superhuman ability. Space will be doomed if an evil Mayan maniac avails himself of its power for his own selfish purposes. The power should always be utilized for righteous deeds only. In order to maintain peace throughout the universe, Space Harrier departs once again to do battle with the enemy. And sadly, this is the very last Space Harrier game we would ever get. Alright, and here is the story of the Space Harrier games. In the space year 6221, Harrier went off to war for the very first time. Okay. Later in 6226, at the Battle Dragonland, our hero distinguished himself with his valor. That's the events of Space Harrier 1. And finally, in Fantasyland, in the year 6236, Harrier met the Dark Carrier in mortal combat and emerged the victor. That is the plot of Space Harrier II. So yeah, this is a fun game. I definitely think it is a marginally better game than Super Thunder Blade. I don't think Super Thunder Blade is that bad though it is a bit slow and stiff. Space Harrier 2 at least moves and controls nice and smooth. Even if the game sort of has that stammering, dithering effect, and trying to do the old, trying to maintain the illusion of 3D. I definitely think Space Harrier 2 Super Thunder Blade should best be seen as impressive displays of what the Genesis is capable of. That's my take on it anyways. That's why those two games came out first, followed up by, well, Altered Beast. In Japan. In the US, all three of those games came out at the same time, with Altered Beast being a pack-in title, and 3 other games: Last Bell, Tommy the Store of Baseball, and Third Force 2, wrapping up the releases, the launch day releases. But yeah, I still prefer Altered Beast, personally, but outside of that, I think this is probably the second best of the launch titles. And that's finally glad to have finally taken care of a 1989 release. I hope the 12 of you who sat by and watched me play through Space Harrier II enjoyed this full perfect playthrough. We only have one more launch title from 1989 left for us to complete here on Perfect Playthroughs. And in addition to that, we also have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more releases from 1968. So, sorry, 1989. So in total, 6 more games from 1989 left for us to complete. Oh yeah. As per usual, let's name ourselves. We got the highest score. We've beaten the game. But tomorrow, I am going to do. Tomorrow, there will be. I'm going to say this right now. Tomorrow, there won't be any live streams tomorrow. Instead, I will be uploading the intro video to my next Perfect Playthrough, number 118, Shining in the Darkness. Hope you're all looking forward to that. Leave a like, comment, share, and subscribe to my channel. I greatly appreciate it. With all the way, this is Mike Gordon, sign out.